like you look at an OM and you don't ask the question like, all right, how do I make this work, right? Like, how do I add value? And I know like there's the real obvious ones of, oh, I'll do the kitchens, I'll do the baths, and that'll get me another extra $150 a month. But what are some things you're seeing seasoned investors doing to add value, right?
Yeah,
Like some of the not so obvious ones of like, how can I make this building that I really like? How can I get that NOI to where I need it to be?
yeah. The best value adds are usually not the obvious components. If it's a kitchen and bath, of course, not everyone can do that, but most of us can.
Yep.
So it's where else is the value? Many times that is simply in operating the business. And I love what you said on the landlord tip. Tip of the week is this is a business. Look at it like a business. Make decisions as if it's a business. And it's surprising how many properties, especially with a long-term owner, their business methodology simply is not current. For example, and these are all hypothetical, do I have any kind of online presence for the building? Can my tenants pay through this, or are they having to write me a check? Things as basic and simple as that. How are my work orders processed and handled? And the benefits of answering these questions and coming up with solutions aren't necessarily the obvious, like if I can process a work order more quickly, it costs me less in payroll and administrative and whatever. It's also the tenant experience. And if the tenant is experiencing something better, it's a business, Mark. I love that you said that. If it's a business, your tenants are your customers, and they should be treated like customers. What is their experience? And if I can find ways to make that experience better, I lease the units more quickly, my turnover is lower, and these all help keep costs down. So a lot of the value add is through management practices and making sure that those are current, making sure that you're finding ways to implement the latest available philosophies in tenant service and management for your building. Other ways, and don't overlook the value add of debt. Don't get stupid debt and don't throw stupid money. We talked about that early on, but things like interest only is not necessarily stupid, depending on how you're structuring it and your hold. People get locked in the mindset of I have to pay down the principal, I have to reduce my principal, that increases my equity. Yeah, but it is also a business. So are there ways to increase your cash flow over an intended hold period? And is interest only a portion of that? That can be a huge value add if you're looking at your return. And if you're getting investors to come on board with you, what you're able to pay those investors as their return. Work with a mortgage professional. Many lenders have them. Go to a seasoned professional mortgage broker. Let them look at your scenario. Let them give you advice. I certainly see the value in brokers in any industry, but I never said this. I know it's being recorded. Just because you get advice from a broker doesn't mean that you have to hire them. Listen to them. Get their advice, right? They're seeing exponentially more deals than you are. They're going to know what's current. So I would say value add is management, value add is finance. The obvious bricks and mortar value add, unit finish is the thing the tenants touch. Don't confuse yourself. Putting a new roof on is not a value add. It's a capital expenditure that you're not going to get paid back for through rent increases. So don't put that in. But the last thing I'll say on value add is don't ignore other income. Other income is usually only 5 to 10% of the total revenue load, but And again, I've written articles, and you asked me in the beginning about why I hate cap rates, but I'm going to use the all horrible word cap rate. Increasing revenue by 5 to 10%, if you're valuing it with a cap rate, has a huge effect on what your ultimate value is, especially if you're only 25% leveraged in the deal with your own cash. If you can find a way to drive your income 5 or 10%, theoretically, you could basically refinance and take your cash out. So look at that other income. And again, within the constraints of the market and the context of the market, don't be afraid to look for tenant reimbursements for utilities, for instance. Don't be afraid of facilities charges. And it's not just about gouging a tenant to see what else you can get in. These are commonly occurring other income items. Also look at services that you can provide and perhaps have the tenant share in. I love this company, 𝗬𝘃. It's not that new, but it's relatively new to Chicago, where, instead of building the package center in your building that just costs money, you can actually outsource this through a company, and the tenant can schedule delivery from the third-party company who takes all the deliveries and brings it on the tenant's schedule. And they love that kind of stuff. And they will pay for those kinds of services. So don't forget about other income in terms of your value add strategy.